Me being included, Christina, one is just the nature of our business. You know, we're one of the largest home builders in the country. We're the largest home builder by volume in Arkansas, and so our mission and our business has been entry-level, affordable, attainable workforce housing. And so when we see that one of our cities that not only we build in, but is our home base for our 7-state large stretch, we obviously have a real vested interest in being involved in solutions for something we just happen to do every day. This has been done in a lot of different great places. One of those common examples is regulation. You know, regulation has been something I think growing on our industry for some time. A lot of that regulation comes at the local level. But when I say that, whether it be materials being used, aesthetic design standards, different standards for development and home construction, many of which are not bad ideas in and of themselves. Some of them are health safety related, some are environmental related, some of them are energy efficiency. The catch-22 is the more regulation you add to the process, that's just cost. The more, when it comes to inspections, the more layers of review, red tape, if you will, in cities for getting homes processed, delays that come from those inspections, that's just time. And time is money, and that money, unfortunately, and those costs and expenses get tacked on to affordability, and that's what really dwindles it. Obviously, when you're having an influx of population, then unless you can magically make homes or housing appear, you're going to have a housing shortage. Is that related or correlated directly with affordability? Sometimes, sometimes not. But I know I think what you're saying, and as part of the mandate for this task force, it's not just affordable housing, it's the supply of affordable and really all housing. And so those can go definitely hand in hand. But it's one thing if you had a stagnant town that, let's say, just doesn't have some affordable housing. Well, that's one thing. It's very different when you have a very growing town that not only needs affordable housing, but needs quite a spectrum of housing, like we've talked about, rental units, single family homes, and beyond. There's more than just one demographic and problem to be solved when you have a population exploding region like Northwest Arkansas and Fayetteville. So yes, that does contribute definitely to the supply shortage, which then naturally trickles to the affordability. More people coming also bring more competition for pricing. And so when you have a set inventory, what happens? Supply and demand. And so you've got more people fighting over a single house, which does what? Drives the cost up. And so all of those factors play into a place where there's a lot of people moving in. It's a great thing in and of itself, but yes, it does create growing pains for housing. We can't make them pop up overnight. I completely understand that part of the mandate and one of the demographics is the rental community here. Having or not having someone suffering from the problem, so to speak, I don't think means at all that we don't all relate to the problem and can't be a part of the solution piece. We are well aware, for example, in our business, we also have a big arm of rental communities. That's something that we've had as a separate business model for a long time. We've got currently, I believe, over 200 units in Northwest Arkansas. So our head and our director of our rental side is about as aware of anyone of the difficulties for her getting clients and people in the door. She's the one that understands, and our department, our rental department, they're the ones that are trying to push for business every day. They naturally don't want empty houses. And so a lot of the problems they see is whether it's credit, affordability, capacity, jobs to be able to put people in, and we work hard to help them get it. So we see daily different applications, different renter demographics that we're trying to get in our business. So I would say that just from my perspective, we're very aware of the rental side because we're in that business too, working day in, day out to help people get in rental units. I do think we've also got quite a few on the task force that actually have been or are familiar with some of the nonprofits, some of the renter organizations. So to say, so to speak, we don't have a renter representative. There's some pretty good experience with renter programs on the task force now, including ones like us that are in the rental business trying to get people in. There's definitely stages of goals. I think if I were to summarize, the end goal is wanting to provide some practical solutions. I think there's a lot of great think tanks. There's a lot of good groups out there that have great discussions and great philosophies on problems. We want to make sure that we're not wasting anyone's time with this. It is called a crisis for a reason, and we want to make sure that we're providing practical solutions. If that means we have to narrow our scope to a few areas or categories of solutions, I think that's going to be worth it. Broad sounds good, but we want to make sure that we're not just speaking to speak or proposing to propose. I think that's going to be one of our preliminary objectives that we're working on really right now, starting to narrow down with some of the stakeholders, the interest groups, speaking to them, but to understand and make sure we're targeting the right priorities so that we can find solutions for those. Instead of, there's hundreds of problems. There's hundreds of possible solutions. Are all of them practical? No. Do some of them require state or federal assistance or cooperation? Yeah, they may. And we can't do as much about that. Doesn't mean they're not good options we want to list, but my best answer is we want to make sure that we are narrowing down the areas, like I mentioned, whether land use, regulation, outreach, perhaps subsidy programs and assistance. What are the real areas that will make a difference? And then how can we dive in and provide some real bullets, some real practical solutions and proposals so that the council doesn't feel like they've just wasted their time and the mayor with a think tank for 1 year that basically produced a report saying, we have a problem. They're well aware of that, and they've engaged a good group for us to try to research what can we do about it. So there'll be a lot of pieces to it, but we're excited. I think it's exciting to also see a city. I think it's important for people to remember a city that cares this much to do something like this. There's a lot of places that don't. For lack of a better way to put it, might sound crude, but when a city's basically asking, guys, what are areas that not only how do we solve a problem, but what are areas that we may have fallen short? What are rules? What are regulations? What are things we need to change and do better to help provide a solution? A lot of cities don't want to ask that. A lot of it's diagnosis and self-check. And it takes, I think, a city that really cares about its residents, its citizens, its growth, its businesses, and all of its people to ask that question and be ready to hear sometimes some hard news.